One of the initial and primary actions of the Nazis upon coming to power in 1933 was the establishment of concentration camps, with construction commencing that same year. The original purpose of concentration camps was the re-education or extermination of dissidents. Subsequently, with the beginning and expansion of German aggression in Europe, the concentration camps became real factories of death. Dachau prisoner Vasily Volodko remembered, "The conditions were brutal. Wake up at 5 a.m., formation and roll call. The barrack, which was meant to hold 500 people, actually housed 2,000, including Poles, French, and Serbs. The ideologists of the SS and the organizers of the concentration camps specifically made the conditions in the camp unbearable for the prisoners. We have already talked about Theodor Eicke, Adolf Eichmann, Rudolf Hess, and other Nazi criminals, ringleaders and organizers of the concentration camp system. For what reason? Some people who have learned about the atrocities committed by the Nazis find themselves asking why. Why did the fascists hate people so much and treated them so brutally? The answer is simple: because they were fascists. The concentration camp system accommodated mainly sadists, perverts, maniacs, and other psychopaths who could take out their mental perversions and complexes on defenseless people with impunity. On the other hand, the concentration camp broke the psyche of even seemingly normal Germans at that time, especially if that psyche was not very stable and the minds were filled with Nazi propaganda. Having tasted blood and realizing that there would be no consequences, the young SS men became beasts without pity for their victims. Therefore, the entire system of punishments and executions in concentration camps was based on the presumption of prisoners' guilt. Since they ended up here, they thus deserved humiliation and death. Shlomo Vanzia, an Auschwitz survivor, recalled, "The two largest gas chambers were designed for 1,450 people, but the SS drove from 16 to 1,700 people there. They followed the prisoners and beat them with sticks. Those behind pushed those in front. As a result, so many prisoners were placed in the chambers that even after death they remained standing. There were nowhere to fall." A distinctive feature of German fascism was that before executing the fascists would first extract everything possible from the individuals: slave labor and torture, which provided entertainment for the executioners, psychological humiliations, medical experiments on living people, all these widely practiced in most concentration camps. And even after the murder, the fascists did not leave the victims in peace. They skinned them, and the bodies were used for soap, all for the benefits of the Reich and its residents. Barbarity of the highest degree. Last minute. Many convicts believed that they were being led to showers, and only finding themselves in the cramped cell, they began to understand what was happening. Others had guessed from the very beginning that it was a one-way road and their final journey. Mothers, meanwhile, tried to soothe the toddlers struggling to overcome their own fear. Some even joked and laughed so that the children would not feel fear and horror until the last minute. One woman, the mother of 4 children, on her way to the gas chamber, recognized the camp commandant Rudolf Hess watching them. She said to him, "How can you kill these beautiful, sweet babies? Don't you have a heart?" Another mother was trying unsuccessfully to push her twins through the closing doors of the chamber, pleading with the executioners, "Leave at least my beloved children alive." But the SS men really had no heart. There was just some kind of a motor pumping blood. The Nazi and executioner Hess managed to leave memoirs full of self-pity before his execution, in which he described how unfortunate he was and how it was difficult to endure all these executions, and how he suffered from all this following the orders of the Führer and Himmler. This is truly the epitome of hypocrisy and pretense. In his memoir, however, Hess forgot to mention his camp servant, Eleonora Hodis, who became pregnant with his child. After that, Eleonora was confined to a small cell in the basement, completely naked. She was fed only once a day, and occasionally they even forget to feed her. After 6 months of suffering, the girl had an abortion. Hess also did not remember the little victims of the monster Mengele in his memoirs, stating in court that research doctors were only nominally subordinate to him and worked by their program. Nonetheless, the executioner's excuses were of no help. Trials. According to memoirs, there are recollections of the impressions made on the judges of the International Tribunal and all those present in the room by the so-called physical evidence. On the table under a glass cover on an elegant marble stand was a human head. Yes, a human head, inexplicably shrunk to the size of a large fist with long, slicked back hair. It was one of the visitors of the prisoner who was killed. Subsequently, the crushed bones and marrow were somehow removed through the neck, processed, and the shriveled head was restuffed, turning into a figurine. The described scene took place at the Nuremberg trials, where those present felt a chill and some woman crying out lost conscience. Stuffed people. Sometimes an SS officer or his wife liked someone from the prisoners. It could be a man or a woman, even a child who were in the concentration camp. And they, the Germans, could order a stuffed statuette made of the prisoners. Such prisoners were killed, skinned, and stuffed with some kind of filler, just like stuffed animals, only they were people. According to some prisoners, there were also full-height dummies, which became decorations of SS dwellings. However, the full-sized human specimen did not fall into the hands of the investigation. Apparently, the owners managed to dispose of such horrible statuettes. When, by order of the prosecutor, they removed the sheets from another table, no one immediately realized what was lying on it, and there were pieces of human skin in various stages of processing, after flashing, after tanning, and after finishing. Next to the pieces of leather stood products, bags, briefcases, elegant women's shoes, and a jacket. Further laid pieces of soap for various purposes: household, fragrant toilet, baby soap, liquid, and for other needs, all in beautiful packages and shaped bottles. Then the German specialist in the utilization of human remains, an employee of the Anatomical Institute, a certain Sigmund Mauser, spoke. The most terrible thing about his speech was not even the scary thing he talked about, but the fact that he spoke in a monotone voice with technical language, as if giving a lecture to students. He was telling how in the laboratories of their institute the problem of intelligent industrial disposal of waste from numerous death factories was solved by their effective use of human flesh, fat, bones, skins, etc. According to recollections, after the presentation of artifacts from the German concentration camps and Mauser's speech, the delegation member couldn't eat anything for 2 days. They couldn't swallow a single bite. Terrible millstones. All this speaks only of one thing: the use of the concentration camp prisoners. Their ruthless exploitation with subsequent mass extermination was put on stream on an industrial basis in Germany. Along with the state interest of the Reich, the fate of the prisoners was also aggravated by the attitude of the camp guards and capo camp policemen, recruited from the prisoners. The survival of the prisoners largely depended on the specific executor of the evil will of the Nazi state machine. Commands: run, crawl, lie down, do push-ups, bark, fight each other, sing, dance, and talk all sorts of nasty things about yourself and your comrades were quite common in the concentration camps. The slightest disobedience usually ended in a brutal beating or death. Concentration camp guards, SS men, and their accomplices reveled in their power over people completely dependent on them, bringing to life their unhealthy, horrific fantasies. Sadists and psychopaths with maniacal tendencies turned out to be the arbiters of the fates of hundreds of thousands and millions of people. And this is another disgusting mug of Nazism. Overall, during the years of Nazism, the fascists built 14,000 concentration camps, through the grindstones of which no less than 18 million people passed, 11 million of whom remained forever in these Nazi death factories. The Nazi killing machine spared neither adults nor children.